Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 488. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, we've been abandoned this week.
We have. It's just you and me.
Yep, Zach was like, I'm piecing out of this one. No Zach this week.
He hates Steven Soderbergh and Questlove, evidently.
Yeah, especially soul music. Don't get him started on that.
For sure. You just mentioned soul music in his vicinity, and you're gonna get an earful for like a good hour or so. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
We didn't want to subject the listeners to that, so we decided to let Zach off for this week.
Do you think, in actuality, could Zach talk about soul music for an hour?
I'm not sure I could talk about soul music for an hour. I mean, I think we'll have a good discussion about a documentary that's, circles around soul music for sure. But I don't know enough about it. That's for sure. We'll get into it. But the documentary was an education to me on multiple levels, I would say.
That's great. That's awesome.
So, yeah. It's fun when documentaries can do that for sure. But I'm excited to be here with you, Kyle.
Yeah,
awesome.
No, I'm excited that we get to do a one-on-one again.
For sure. Thank you, the listeners, for joining us. We appreciate you spending the time to hang out with us as we talk 2 new release movies. Before we get into that, though, we got to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just a reminder, there is a video version of this podcast, which is essentially the audio version, but you get to look at Kyle and my face right there on the screen on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, REEL with an S on the end. You'll see the channel there. And probably the last, I don't know, it feels like maybe 20 plus episodes are there in video version. So if you'd like to watch us while you listen to us, that's where you could do that. You could also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio, as well as other Cinereelist swag. This week on Patreon, we will be running down Kyle's number 80 to 89 in his top 100. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Kyle, since he joined the podcast later on in the podcast life, he never actually got to do his top 100. So we're doing it over on Patreon, kind of 10 movies at a time here and there. And today we're going to do another entry in his awesome top 100. I'm excited about that. So if you're not a Patreon, you should join right now. You'll get to hear that. You'll also get to hear his number 90, 91 through 100, as well as who knows, an insane amount of back episodes. If you just want more of this podcast, your first month, support us for $3 and you will have more to listen to than you probably care to even know about. And they're similar to the main podcast, but we know that there's less people listening, so it's a lot freer, I would say. Not that we're saying anything controversial over there. It's loose, I would say, over there.
It's looser. There's a lot more Googling.
Yeah, a lot more Googling, more arguing, a little less formatty, a little more of like a chill hangout vibe over there, I would say.
I would say sometimes we wing it.
Sometimes we wing it. Yep. And sometimes that works out, and sometimes it's a total train wreck. Both are fun. Anyway, check out the Patreon if you haven't done that yet. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review. Please leave us a review if you have not done that yet. Leave us 5 stars only, and maybe throw in a little bit of a text for your review. If you throw in some text, we'll probably, most likely, almost definitely read it on the podcast and discuss it. So if you haven't done that, do that for us. And also, you can send us an email. You can send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, any of those kinds of things. Just send them our way to heyguys@cinereelists.com. We got an email this past week from good old Troy from Canada, and Kyle's going to read us the email right now.
So the subject line of this email from Troy is bad back equals another last 10 top 10 already. So Troy, sorry to hear you throwing your back out. It looks like you've been bedridden for a couple of weeks. We hope you're feeling better, but I mean, the nice thing about being bedridden is you get to watch a bunch of movies. So silver lining to that.
Definitely. I have a bad backstory. I played basketball after not having played basketball for like 5 years. I decided to play basketball wearing sandals only for like an hour and a half. I played, hardcore bump and grind basketball.
Bump it. Wait, what kind?
That's probably the wrong terminology. Bump and pass. I forget what they call it, but there's a phrase for like, where you're like playing physically. I forget what it is. It doesn't matter.
Street ball, baby.
Sure, street ball. Yeah, bump and grind was probably the wrong phrase.
Wait, so is that song, There's Nothing Wrong with a Little Bit of Bump and Grind, about basketball?
Absolutely it is. At least I always thought it was.
I was today years old when I learned that.
Anyway, not a great idea. Ended up on my back, right? Because I don't even remember what it was, like a pulled muscle in my back or something like that. And I was like, this is awesome. I just get to sit on my back. Like they literally told me, don't get off the couch for like a week. You have to let it heal. That's the only way this is going to happen. I was like, this is great. They gave me a prescription. I took the prescription. Those pills blasted me so hard. It was brutal because I literally could do nothing. Like I could not focus on anything. I couldn't watch movies that I wanted to watch or I couldn't do anything. I could barely hold a conversation. They were so strong. That's the first time that I realized how people with like prescription pain pills get addicted to those things, because it pretty much completely removed me from life for a week.
Yeah.
Like I literally had no pain, but it was also incredibly frustrating to just not even be able to enjoy things that I'm looking to enjoy. But I totally understand how people who want to escape from reality get addicted to those things, because it worked. Removed me from reality for sure. But yeah, I don't wish back pain on anybody. Not my worst enemy. Certainly not Troy. What else did he have to say?
Especially not Troy. Well, so he gave us his last 10 top 10. And he says he's feeling better. So hopefully by this point, he's back on his feet and feeling good. But let's go through his last 10 top 10, or top 10 last 10, however you want to call it. His number 10 is Raya and the Last Dragon. He thought this was pretty forgettable, and that the Aquafina dragon reminded him of My Little Pony.
I did not have that reaction. I don't think you've seen it yet, right?
I have seen it. Yeah, it was on the most recent top 10 last 10. I liked it. That's right. Actually, I liked it a lot. Yeah. His number 9 is Murder on the Orient Express from 2017. He said that it's a little hard to follow and too many characters, which is true. There are a lot of characters in that story, be it book or movie. Number 8 is Disturbia from 2007. Is this the Shia LaBeouf movie?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Is it worth seeing?
Are you a Shia LaBeouf fan?
I mean, I'm neutral. I don't really have an opinion on him.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this is pre-Transformers, or maybe they had already filmed Transformers. I don't remember.
This would be just before. I mean, they may have filmed it, but I'm pretty sure Disturbia came out either before Transformers or right around the same time.
Yeah, so it was when he was making that transition from Even Steven. I think that was the show.
I thought he was in Holes.
Holes the movie, but wasn't Even Steven like a TV show he was on?
I was not watching children's programming in the 2000s.
You're not up on You're not up on your Shia LaBeouf trivia, obviously.
I am not a Shia LaBeouf buff. No.
You're not a Shia LaBeouf.
I am not a Shia LaBeouf or Shia LaBeouf. How do you want to say it? LaBeouf.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I'm not going to give you a strong recommendation here, but I do remember enjoying it on some level, for sure, around the time that I saw it. But it doesn't bother me that somebody would put it at number 8. I have no particular memory or love for it, so.
I just did the quick math, and that movie came out 14 years ago, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Let's see. His number 7 was Greenland from 2020. I'm not familiar with this movie at all. He said it wasn't life-changing. I wonder if that's Troy's measurement for every movie. Is it life-changing? Nope. All right, 3 stars.
Well, Greenland is one that I stumped for on my last 10 top 10. I thought Greenland was awesome. If you like 90s disaster movies, it's a return to that. It's great. I loved Greenland.
Did it change your life?
No, I wouldn't say that, but movies rarely do. So.
All right, his number 6 is Toast from 2010. He says this is a biopic with Freddie Highmore and Helena Bonham Carter, but I don't know who it's about.
Yeah, what is Toast about? I've never even heard of this.
I've never heard. Apparently, it's a biopic or a biopic.
But
we don't know about who.
It's a comedy drama based on the cookery writer Nigel Slater, who is an English food writer, journalist, and broadcaster.
Not familiar with him.
Not familiar with him either.
Apparently, he's worthy of a biopic.
Evidently.
Number 5 is Monster from 2018, not the Charlize Theron movie from 2001. He said this is a hidden gem. It walks you through a very uncomfortable situation about a young man. Gives you lots to talk about after watching. Not familiar with this one whatsoever. His number 4 is Luca, which we reviewed very recently. He said that he had similar experience to the three of us. He said one thing he noticed. Did anyone else find Julia's dad crazy similar to Flint's dad on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? And I agree with that.
I don't remember Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Both are kind of quiet, soft-spoken, large men with mustaches and brows, and you can't see their eyes. So both in their demeanor and in their physical appearance, they're similar.
Interesting.
His number 3 is Grizzly Man from 2005. This is the Werner Herzog movie documentary about, was it like Timothy Treadstone, who went to live with grizzly bears in Montana?
Wow. You remember his name. That's crazy.
Is that the right name, Timothy Treadstone?
I don't know. I have no clue. Okay. I just know it's a guy. It's definitely a guy who went to live with grizzly bears, but I have no clue what his name is.
It could be Treadwell, because Treadstone, I just watched Born Identity, and Treadstone is the name of the program in Born Identity.
The program? Oh, the spy program?
The secret. Yeah. Now I'm curious. Timothy Treadwell. So close.
You were so close, though. There's not a chance I would have pulled first or last name on that one.
So Zach's actually in Montana right now. Do you think he is living with grizzlies?
I sure hope so.
Yeah, me too. That would be some great Instagram content from him.
There's another grizzly bear documentary that is lesser known that is awesome, and I'm forgetting the name of it. It's oh, come on. This is worth looking up because I think it's called Grizzly Suit. Grizzly Suit, that came out right around the same time. Project Grizzly. If Troy or anybody who liked Grizzly Man, you should definitely check out Project Grizzly. This was 2005. No, this is 1996. Grizzly
Man
was
a whole
2005.
decade before Grizzly Man.
Yeah, and it's about a guy who considers himself an inventor. He's Canadian, and Troy's probably seen this because Canadian. Anyway, he decides that he wants to wrestle like a grizzly in the wild, and so he's like, "How can I do that? I obviously can't just wrestle one, so I'm gonna build a suit that's like grizzly proof. That way I can like go find a grizzly and just literally wrestle him." And so if you look at the poster, the guy is in the grizzly suit, and it basically looks like a mech suit.
Yeah.
But it's all like soft padding and like hard enough not to be torn through, but like soft. And so the documentary is him putting together this suit and running tests, and then doing tests with grizzlies on elements of the suit, and then actually trying to wrestle a wild grizzly in the forest in this suit. And have you ever seen American Movie?
Yes, I have.
It's very American Movie where it's like this guy who's just a little not there.
If you want to wrestle a grizzly.
Yeah. Who has this idea, but it's not fully cooked. And he has really no expertise in this thing, but he has a passion to get it done. And then they just follow him while he's on this pursuit. And it's pretty wild and pretty fun to watch. But anyway, both fun movies in similar realms, but very different presentations, I would say.
So I'm looking at pictures of this suit. It does look like video game power armor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, okay, so you can build, and maybe the movie addresses this, you can build a grizzly-proof suit, but you're not going to be as strong as a grizzly bear itself, though. So, like, are you wrestling it, or are you just being mauled safely by it?
I think he wants to kind of wrestle it, knowing that he'll probably lose, and that's what the suit's for.
Yeah.
It's like, can I survive wrestling it? Not necessarily can I beat it type of
He's
thing.
not going to probably lose. He is going to lose. Will he lose with his life or not?
Yeah. But I remember at the time, and they even have it on the poster, that Quentin Tarantino was like really high on this documentary. He would talk about it all the time because it's wacky, but a fun watch for sure.
I might need to check that one out. I do like those quirky documentaries.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of quirky documentaries, his number 2 is I Am Divine from 2013. This is about the John Waters muse from Pink Flamingos and other movies.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Pink Flamingos or any Divine movies?
I have seen Pink Flamingos. It's definitely a movie.
Yeah, it's. I've read about it. I know about it. I have no desire to see it.
Sure. I mean, the only reason to see it, I would say, is because you're interested in seeing what broke John Waters out. But if you have no interest in John Waters, then I don't see why you would watch this. I mean, there is like an element of it. It is film history because it's, a lead in to some of the indie type stuff that happens in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. But it is not a movie for prudes. That's for sure.
I think it's not for people with a weak stomach either.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally a scene where somebody defecates on screen. And for real.
Oh yeah, I know. Oh yeah,
it's not a documentary. More. It's not a documentary. No. But Divine is the transgender individual that's kind of leads the movie, and she is super interesting as the lead, and is not your Hollywood person for sure. And like nobody in the movie is. I think they're all non-actors. I think Divine maybe does some acting, but the rest of them are just kind of people that John Waters rounded up. And yeah, it's a cult film. So yeah, if you're into that cult film history, it's kind of one you have to see. That's why I saw it. Haven't seen all John Waters movies. After I saw Pink Flamingos, I was like, okay, I think I've seen the one that everybody talks about.
I can check that off the box.
I've seen a bunch of his later movies where he toned it down and Hollywoodized it a little bit. But not exactly a huge John Waters fan.
I appreciate him. Like, I appreciate that he is creating, and I do, whenever I hear him talk, I think he's an interesting person to listen to. He's got interesting things to say, but I'm not actually that interested in his content.
Yeah. I think Pecker is pretty good.
Okay.
That's maybe his only movie that I would say I like that I've seen. I've seen 4 or 5 of them.
Wow. All right. Pecker. Maybe go on the list.
You've never seen Pecker?
No, I've not. I don't think I've seen a single John Waters movie.
Do you know what Pecker is?
Maybe like in the vernacular sense?
No, the movie. So
no,
the movie,
nothing about the movie.
The movie came out in 1998, and it stars Edward Furlong and Christina Ricci. So it is absolutely a movie that's planted firmly in 1998 for sure. It also has Martha Plimpton, who plays kind of not the cheerleader, but the other girl in Goonies.
Like the friend.
Right. But this is like 14 years on, 12 years on from Goonies. So it's good. It's a good comedy, and it's definitely toned down compared to other John Waters stuff, but it's good. I like it. Pecker.
Cool. All right. Well, Troy's number 1 is Kill Bill Volume 2. He watched Volume 1 a decade ago and finally got around to watching number 2. And he asks, what the heck was I waiting for?
I mean, that's a good question. That is a long spread.
Troy, what were you waiting for? It's not like we're not talking like RoboCop 1, RoboCop 2 here, where they're just a sequel. Like it literally is a 2-part movie, a 2-part story.
Sure. Yeah. I don't understand the delay. Kyle, though, Kill Bill 1 or 2? What's your take?
Ooh, so I've not seen these movies in probably a decade.
Mm-hmm.
I lean towards 1 just because I remember 2 being a little long.
Mm-hmm.
Like 1 was more about, let's just get to these showdowns between the bride and whatever the killer cobras, whatever their name are. I can't remember who the team is.
Mm-hmm.
And like number 2, it gave you the showdowns, but also it gave you the backstory and the final confrontation. Though now that I've seen more kung fu movies from the 70s, maybe I'll appreciate number 2 more, because it definitely borrows from that.
Yeah, I definitely see that they're obviously, the same one big movie, but the Volume 1 is so full of energy and movement.
Yep.
Like they're constantly going from one scene to another. They're even going from one style to another. Like you forget there's like an entire animated section in that movie.
There is. I totally forgot that.
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's like an anime style, 10-minute section. And I think they're actually similar length. It's just Volume 1 is Tarantino throwing all of his influences on the screen, like visually. And then in part 2, the movie slows down and becomes a lot of heavy Tarantino dialogue, which just makes the film feel like it's slowing to a crawl towards the end of it.
Yeah.
And so people, I think, generally like part 1 more because there's more memorable stuff in it. But if you like Inglourious Bastards or Hateful Eight or some of his other movies that are just mostly dialogue and heavy acting with like peppered with moments that are explosive, Volume 2 is that. Like that version of Tarantino, that's Volume 2. So I don't know, maybe Troy actually did himself a favor by waiting 10 years, because it's not like watching them back to back, I think, gives you any of a bigger benefit than spreading them out. So I don't know, but I prefer Volume 2, but Volume 1 is fun for sure.
I definitely just need to revisit them. It's been too long. Troy says he actually likes Volume 2 better. So he's in your camp on that one.
I agree.
Well, thank you, Troy, for writing in. That is great. We love hearing anyone's last 10 top 10 or top 10 last 10. And we will share it on the show and discuss.
Definitely. Send us an email. All right, let's jump into our double header for this week. We're going to talk 2 movies that were recently released on streaming. The first one is on HBO Max right now, and it's called No Sudden Move. Here's a clip.
You said a man want to see me.
Alley out back.
Can't come in here. What is he, white? Oh, boy. So what's the score?
We're sending a man that works in an office to pick something up. You are part of a babysitting team watching his family while he does it.
Good morning. Everything is normal, except...
That was No Sudden Move, a 2021 American period crime thriller film. This was directed by Steven Soderbergh and stars Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro, David Harbour, John Hamm, Brendan Fraser, Kieran Culkin, Julia Fox, Ray Liotta, and Bill Duke, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for No Sudden Move is: a group of criminals is brought together under the Take two. A group of criminals is brought together under mysterious circumstances and have to work together to uncover what's really going on when their simple job goes completely sideways. Kyle, what'd you think of No Sudden Move? Actually, before you tell me that, I have no clue what you think about Soderbergh. Like, I'm pretty sure, are any of his movies on your top 100? Like, where do you sit with him?
Did he do Ocean's trilogy?
He did.
Okay, so I mean, I would say off the top of my head, Ocean's 11 is probably his favorite movie of mine. What else has he done? Start naming some Soderbergh for me. Like, I know he did Contagion.
Sure.
He did, what was one with Adam Driver and James Bond, the heist at the
Logan Lucky
racetrack. Logan Lucky, I liked that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So he started his career with Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Have you ever seen that?
Okay. Never seen that one. No.
You should definitely check that out. That's like a late 80s, early 90s movie that was produced independently. It's like one of the first movies that had that independent wave in the early 90s that was released in theaters. When they realized, oh, you can make a movie for almost nothing. It has great actors in it and a great story. Even if it had no budget, it can still do well at the box office. So that's a good one. Then Out of Sight with George Clooney, Jennifer Lopez.
Which is on I've never seen it, but it's on my watch list.
The Limey is pretty great.
Nope.
It's like a gangster movie.
Okay.
It's definitely one to check out. Then the big one, his big year in 2000, Traffic.
That's right. Okay.
And Aaron Brockovich.
I've never seen Aaron Brockovich.
Sure.
But I have seen Traffic.
Those are the two that made him a household name. Like same year, those two movies. Traffic wins Best Picture. Aaron Brockovich was a big deal for sure. Then you got Ocean's 11 in 2001. Solaris, back with Clooney.
Oh, yeah.
Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. Have you seen Shay, Part 1 and Part 2, based on the Cuban revolutionary?
No, but I've heard of it.
Really good. If you need a movie to watch as if it was a TV show, I think it's like 6 hours long. Super long, but
it's like
really
break it
up. Good enough to get a Criterion release. The Girlfriend Experience is good. Contagion's good. Then you get into the Magic Mikes, the Logan Luckies.
Oh yeah, Magic Mike. Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever seen?
Did he do Side Effects?
Yes, he did Side Effects.
Yep.
That's a fun one too.
Yep.
Have you ever seen Unsane?
No.
Unsane is really good. Nobody ever really talks about it, but I enjoy it a lot. It's all filmed on an iPhone. Okay. He did it in 2018, so it wasn't that long ago. And it stars Claire Foy and Jay Farrow. And it's about this girl who goes to get some counseling and then says the wrong thing in the counseling session. And then they check her in, like they basically think she's a danger to herself. And so she just went for this counseling session and all of a sudden she finds herself institutionalized. And she can't figure out what to say or what to do to get them to release her because she feels like she should not be there. Like they think she's insane and she's like, I'm not insane. You know what I mean? Like I may have said the wrong thing, but I am not a danger to myself, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a horror movie, but like it's more like a misunderstanding horror movie. And there's a bunch of details I'm leaving out just in case anybody wants to experience it, but it was super well acted. And the fact that he did it on an iPhone is kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. So when I think of Soderbergh, the first thing comes to my mind is procedural. And he's very talented at kind of like laying out the steps to whatever the movie it is, whether it be a heist, whether it be a crime thriller, be a what was Side Effects, like a pharmaceutical thriller, or even Magic Mike, which I think Magic Mike gets reduced to being the male stripper movie, but it's so much more than that. And I would say, having just quickly revisited his filmography, I don't know if I've seen a bad Soderbergh film. Maybe the one I like the least from all of them would be his Solaris remake.
Sure.
But I mean, overall, I would say he's definitely a competent to good director in my eyes. So, he's consistent for me. And this movie, No Sudden Move, it kind of delivered what I expected from a Soderbergh film. And it's sort of, I guess you can almost you could call it his take on sort of a noir in a sense. It's not a noir as in the fact that you don't have like a detective and the femme fatale, but you do start with these three characters who don't really know what's going on with this job they're given to do. And then as the movie progresses, they keep unpeeling layer after layer, and sort of it gets deeper and deeper, like a noir does. It sort of unfolds into, how deep does this go? And then especially for the Don Cheadle character, he's like, how far can I take this? And this definitely felt like the Soderbergh kind of take and style on that, where there's even times where I was not fully following what was going on. I don't know about you, if that was happening for you or not, but there was definitely moments I was like, okay, I need to pause and just trying to figure out who knows who and how are they all fitted together here. But here's what really stood out to me: that wide angle lens he used.
Yeah, it's a look. Yeah, for sure.
Man, that was so. This is the best way I could describe how I felt about it. You're a fan of Metallica, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was. I'm not. I definitely don't follow them these days, but
there was a time.
Yep.
And then, did you get Saint Anger, the album?
I listened to it. Yeah, I didn't buy it day one.
But you've listened to it.
Sure. I've listened. It's probably the album I've listened to least from them.
As is most Metallica fans. Yeah. So in Saint Anger, Lars Ulrich famously uses this really tight, unsnared snare drum. And it's a choice, right? And you hear the first song and you're like, okay, this is a new sound for the snare drum. And then you hear the next song and it's the same snare drum, and the third song and it's the same snare drum. And you realize, oh, we're doing the whole album with this really odd, tight sounding drum.
Sure.
That's how I felt watching No Sudden Move, where he's got this wide angle lens that's really distorting the corners. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, it's a good way to show the cars or to show, people in a room. Because this movie starts off pretty much in a small house. And then as the movie progresses, I'm like, oh, we are using this angle, this lens for the entire thing. Inside, outside, wide shot, close up. The whole thing is going to be shot through this one lens. And I'm really curious to know why he decided to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Soderbergh thing. I don't know. There's probably no real creative. There's probably a creative justification that he would make were you to be able to ask him that question. But it's probably one that could just have easily not happened. And it would be generally the same movie as far as what's on page. I'm not sure that angle changes the movie or makes it more interesting or anything. But I did think it was a choice.
Oh, it was definitely a choice. And it seemed utilitarian at times. And there was a couple of moments where it was kind of cool if they're doing like a wide shot of a car. But just every single shot was with this one lens.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely a Soderbergh thing to do. Like Unsane, which I mentioned he shot on an iPhone. He did it because he wanted to, not because he had to shoot it on an iPhone. Yep. So I think occasionally he'll just make a choice like that for no reason. When he did Girlfriend Experience, he used no lighting. Like, basically, if he couldn't get light out of the lights that were already in the room, then he didn't shoot in that room. He found a different room type of thing. So I think sometimes he kind of creates these little directorial challenges for himself, maybe just to keep it interesting for himself. I think they rarely give a vibe that changes the content when he does things like that. But it does, gives you something to talk about in an interview.
Yeah, it didn't ruin the movie for me, and it wasn't distracting to the point of harming the movie, but it definitely was noticeable to see like a character walk across, from left to right, and they're skinny, and then they're wide, and they're skinny again. Like it's that extreme where it's a step below a fisheye lens.
Sure. Yeah. I agree.
But yeah,
it's definitely a choice.
The other thing, just watching this movie, is you forget how Marvel has its tendrils like in every actor now. Mm-hmm. And like how many Marvel actors were in this movie, not doing a Marvel thing, but like, you've got Don Cheadle, Marvel, Benicio del Toro, Marvel, who was David Harbour from Black Widow. Now he's in Marvel too. And you just realize like, man, everyone is doing the Marvel thing now.
Yeah. There's another person in this movie that's in a Marvel movie that we won't mention because I think it's actually a spoiler.
Oh,
the one that comes later.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
That person is not in any of the marketing nor any of the cast lists online.
Was he even in the opening credits?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think it's a pure cameo. But I mean the role's bigger than cameo, I would say, but
he's sort of the linchpin to the whole thing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's where the movie's driving towards the end.
Yeah. But I kind of found that whole setting very interesting too. Like this is set in 1950s Detroit. And there definitely is the influence of the car manufacturers all over this movie, but also the Don Cheadle motivation, being a black man living in Detroit and seeing how Detroit's being changed by, the new money coming in and by suburbia. And that really kind of drives his motivation for the whole thing. I thought was an interesting motivation for the character.
Yeah, I agree. I still, you've been talking about this for a little while. I still can't tell if you actually like it.
That's a good point.
Do you actually like this or
I did enjoy it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. There was definitely like at first when it was I don't know. At first it was like a one house thriller. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then it broke out into more of this, crime noir where, people are chasing all these different leads and there's these crosses and double crosses. And I found that even more interesting. And then it would jump back to the family occasionally. I'm like, why? Who cares? Like, I thought we moved on from the family. Mm-hmm. So I think they could have been excised from the back half of the film. But yeah, I think overall I enjoy this. I don't know if it's my favorite Soderbergh, and I'm not sure if I'm going to really remember it in 6 months or next year, but I'm not mad I watched it.
Yeah, I think I generally fall in the same category. Like I think it's a tight, twisty crime caper. Mm-hmm. It moves pretty fast. There's very little fat to it. It's not particularly long. So it clocks in at 128 minutes. So what's that?
I thought it was like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's 2 hours, but it didn't feel like 2 hours. To me.
Sorry. I was thinking 128 and converting that to 1 hour 28. Yeah.
Right.
No, sorry.
128 minutes. Yeah, and I think probably what I enjoyed the most about it is just kind of the combination of David Holmes, like kind of peppy music, very similar to the collaboration they had in the Ocean's movies, but applied to something that's far less glitzy, like both in the casting and the presentation, just far less glitzy than those Ocean's movies, but with kind of similar subject matter. Like they're both heist movies. They're just very different story DNA, setting DNA for these two different heist movies. I think Soderbergh, when he's at his best, he's telling something kind of traditionally, but he's just so tight with the procedural. Like he gives you just enough interesting information to get across what's happening in the movie, but he's also not holding back so much of the process that it's no longer interesting. And I think this one maybe misses the mark a little bit compared to his really strong resume of these types of movies.
Yeah.
Like Logan Lucky and the Ocean's movies, they do it better than this one. I maybe not better. They do it with a little more fun, a little more pizzazz than what this movie is aiming for sure. This one's aiming for a little more of like an actor's movie where people are digging slightly deeper here and there. And he's also just leaving things a little more mysterious. He's hanging some of the story threads out there a little longer, which if you're the type of person that's not frustrated if things are just like handed to you, then this might be annoying to you in comparison to those other movies of his. I didn't personally find it annoying. I don't think you did either. Even if some of it was like, okay, I need to wrap my head around who they're talking about in this moment, because sometimes they just kind of change topics on you and you're just like, wait, were we talking about this other person? Now we're talking about this person that hasn't appeared in the movie once, but yet they keep talking about. But I think the overall style of it, I found interesting, even if I think in the long term, it's just going to kind of land in the middle for me with Soderbergh.
It definitely lacks the fun of an Ocean's movie or a Logan Lucky. It's more in that Traffic sensibility.
Yeah. Or maybe somewhere in the middle. I mean, Traffic's like dead
Traffic's pretty heavy. Yeah.
This one at least has some twists and some, some good wordplay.
Yeah. It's still pretty serious though.
Yeah. I would say that the scene that steals the movie for me easily is the one we can't talk about. Like the one with that cameo in it. When that person showed up in the movie and they get into that portion of the story and that person is just kind of chewing scenery as that character and Don Cheadle's kind of it's culminating in as high as he can get on the ladder. It was great. The movie started to sing for me in that moment. Took a while to get there, but once it did, I was like, okay, that you were leading me down the path and now you sold me on it. And I enjoyed it all coming together there.
I also think this is one of the best Ray Liotta performances I've seen in a decade, 15 years.
Yeah.
Like Ray Liotta became kind of a caricature of himself in the last 10 years where he was kind of playing like Ray Liotta playing a mobster or, sort of like doing the Henry Hill character over and over again. And I mean, he's again playing a mobster in this movie, but there's just something, he doesn't quite have like that crazy Ray Liotta vibe to him. He's a little bit more subdued and a little bit more like just clinical. And I actually appreciated that performance and that take on the mobster character versus being like the sort of crazy, unpredictable one.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Narc? The movie Narc?
No, but I remember him being all over that poster.
Yeah, it's Jason Patric and Ray Liotta. It's directed by Joe Carnahan, who directed The Gray, which is a movie I love. Okay. And it didn't get much love at the time because the Denzel movie that he won an Oscar for about two police officers.
Training Day came out in a similar time period. And I think Narc kind of fell to the wayside to that movie, but it's really good. And that is the last time in 2002 that I remember watching a movie and thinking it was great because of Ray Liotta. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like certainly he's been in movies that I've liked, but that movie was his and Jason Patric's and they're both awesome in it. But it's been a long time since I've seen a Ray Liotta movie where I'm like, oh yeah, that was his movie and he made it great. In this movie, it's not his movie, but he's good in it.
I think he's good in this one. Yeah.
Speaking of people I haven't seen in a movie for a while, I mean, Brendan Fraser is in this movie. And I remember seeing his name in the credits at the beginning. This is the odd movie that still has credits at the beginning of the movie. And then I forgot he was in it until it was over. And then I was like, where was Brendan Fraser?
Oh, you didn't realize I was him.
I had to look it up because he's absolutely, in my opinion, unrecognizable as the guy that I saw in movies 15, 20 years ago. He's just I'm not saying he looks bad. He just looks different. He's a totally different looking person to me.
Well, I mean, he's gained a ton of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not, Encino Man Brendan Fraser or Mummy Brendan Fraser. I know he had some back health issues, but I think I also read that he actually gained weight for a role itself.
I wonder if it was this role.
Not for this role. It might be a I can't remember who the director was, but he supposedly is for another role. It still is a lot of weight to be gained, and it seems like a rather unhealthy amount, but
yeah. And it also, the role they gave him, or that he wanted, who knows, is just not a flashy role at all. He's kind of the guy who just kind of pushes the plot along. He's the guy who just moves one character from one scene to another, and has very little. I don't know. It's just not a flashy role at all.
He has a lot of agency. He's sort of the middleman for the whole thing,
right? And his character, as it's written, is just it exists to move one interesting person from one place to another.
Yeah.
His actual movement wasn't interesting in the movie. It was just like he was there to facilitate the story, which
he would pop in every so often just to like yell at people.
Right. But even when he did that, it wasn't the interesting part of the movie.
No.
Like his role or the performance. It was just very, I don't want to say forgettable, just not an important part of the movie. And that seems crazy to me because I feel like he hasn't had a career where he's had these like middle roles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I've seen a lot of movies where Brendan Fraser wasn't one of the main players. And in this one, he's just kind of there for me.
Yeah. He's usually, when you think of Brendan Fraser, he is the star of the film.
He would be the Don Cheadle or the Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
Yeah. In this one,
but,
he's just another background character.
But
not background,
maybe this is his reinsertion into Hollywood, where he doesn't mind playing supporting roles and just making movies again, at least. Because I can't think of the last thing I've seen him in since. What was that one? Crash? Was he in Crash?
He was absolutely in Crash.
Think of beyond Crash. Name a Brendan Fraser movie. I
Sure.
know he's made one since, but
yeah, Furry Vengeance.
Okay, there you go. The way that was on our game, wasn't it? Yeah.
Furry Vengeance, I think, was maybe the last time I noticed Brendan Fraser in anything.
Supposedly, he gained the weight for an Aronofsky film that he's making, The Whale.
Ooh.
So
right.
I do like Aronofsky. I'm intrigued.
For sure. Definitely. Another person in this movie that probably didn't need to be, John Hamm, who they barely used in the movie.
Can you explain to me why was John Hamm doing what he was doing at the end when he made the return?
What do you mean? Like the scene with the trunk and stuff like that?
No, well, he then took the bags.
Uh-huh.
And he brought them back to Cameo Guy.
Right.
But I thought John Hamm was working for the police. It seemed like he was working for Cameo Guy.
No, I think he was working for the police, and he got the guy his money back because he's the police. So he was giving it back.
It seemed there seems something just odd about that scene. I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I mean, he's dirty because of the other implication of that money exchange, but he's I think he gave it back because he's a police officer and he was giving the guy his money back, even though he didn't need to, type of thing. He still did it.
The other thing that kind of I wasn't quite following, maybe you caught this or not. So David Harbour and the woman who's not his wife, they have this conversation in a motel. And was that to lead us to believe that they were also trying to do their own little side heist? Because she was dropping names that we heard later in the movie.
Yes. I think they were trying to do their own little side heist, and then they got beat to the punch, which is why she wasn't excited about David Harbour.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right.
She felt he was impotent in, getting it done, basically.
Right. In multiple instances. I guess, no, not literally, but there's other things she wanted him to do that he could not do. So,
right.
I guess for me, once they were kind of like done with the David Harbour character, I didn't need to come back to him to have that conversation with her. That seemed to be like, they could have just trimmed that whole point of the movie. It wasn't like I was invested in David Harbour and his affair.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Probably this doesn't speak well for the movie, but that opening scene in the house with the family and the three guys, that's probably the most interesting scene in the movie, short of the cameo at the end that we're not going to talk about.
I agree. I agree.
That scene, just trying to figure out what everybody's doing. I kind of wish instead of the lead up where you meet several people, they had just started with that scene. Type of
like
thing.
Just have them in the house and
just have these
dropped in.
Have these guys walk up to the house, wearing the mask that kind of make them look like monkeys, and then have them walk in and just kind of drip the story out with the family type of thing, so that you can get your bearings on who's who. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a better movie, but it'd be one that's 10 minutes shorter.
Yeah,
probably.
I am fine with any movie that lands between 90 and 120 minutes. That's a sweet zone right there.
For sure. All right. Well, I think we've definitely talked about No Sudden Move. What are your final thoughts on it? Star rating? Hit me.
I mean, I think first, Soderbergh, this is an average movie. It's enjoyable. I liked it. So 3.5 stars.
I pretty much fall in the same category. I found it entertaining. And I think most people who like Soderbergh, or if you like kind of twisty crime movies, I think this one is a good roll of the dice for most people who are already into that, for sure. And I also gave it a 3.5.
Did we mention that this is on HBO Max?
We did. Yeah. So it's easy to get to as well.
Very easy. Yeah.
All right. 2 3.5s for No Sudden Move. We watched another movie that is new to streaming as well. This one's a documentary that you can watch right now on Hulu. It's called Summer of Soul. Here's a clip.
Are you ready, black people? Are you really ready? Are you ready to listen to all the beautiful black voices, the beautiful black feeling, the beautiful black waves moving in beautiful air? Are you ready, black people? Are you ready?
Nobody ever heard of the Harlem Cultural Festival.
That was Summer of Soul. What do you call those? I'm trying to read the full titles. Parenthesis, ... or comma.
Or ellipses.
Is that called ellipses? All right.
Yeah.
Summer of Soul, open ellipses, ... or comma, when the revolution.
No. The ... is called the ellipses.
Okay. Summer of Soul.
Open parentheses.
Open parent. That's not a parentheses. What do you call that?
Yeah, parentheses. The curved lines.
All right. Summer of Soul. You're the teacher, not me. Summer of Soul.
I was a music teacher.
Open parentheses, ellipses, or comma, when the revolution could not be televised, close parentheses.
Yeah.
All right. That's the official title. We're just going to call it Summer of Soul, which I think is what most people will call it.
Which most people call it, yeah.
It's a 2021 documentary directed by Questlove, featuring a bunch of people, I would say, known and lesser known. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Summer of Soul is Summer of Soul is a feature documentary about the legendary 1969 Harlem Cultural Festival, which celebrated African-American music and culture and promoted Black pride and unity. So it's a documentary about this concert, essentially, that happened in Harlem in 1969. And it was a a festival that happened around the same time as Woodstock. And it contained musical acts that were primarily black, I would say, with it playing to an audience that was also primarily black. And it was televised and recorded and seemed...
Well, not televised.
Oh, it wasn't televised at all? I thought they did televise it.
I got the impression it was just recorded. Okay, I got the impression it was just recorded.
Yeah.
Or videotaped.
That's possible. I don't remember them actually saying that it broadcast anywhere. They did say that later on nobody bothered to get the footage from people. So it probably wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's the crazy thing about this is like this is not documentary footage that we've all seen or that we could have seen that was then hobbled together. This is the first time people have seen this footage because it just sat in cans for 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was televised, which I don't remember if it was or wasn't, it's 1969. So
right.
If you never put it out on VHS or beta or DVD or anything else, and you never put it on a streaming service or, you know what I mean? If it's never put out on physical media or any other format later on, then it just sits there.
It's forgotten. Yeah, it's lost. Yeah.
So this concert footage was generally forgotten, except for the people who were there, both the musicians and the people in the crowd. And according to this documentary and the people recalling their memory of it, it kind of felt like a lost event that was very important to them, but yet has not been focused on quite the same as some of the other cultural events that people remember from this time period, from the late 60s. Woodstock being the closest comparison. So, Summer of Soul, we watched it. And it's kind of hard to pick apart a documentary compared to a narrative movie. But, and I don't really have anything bad to say about Summer of Soul. But you want me to go first on this one?
Yeah. I want to hear your thoughts on this one.
I definitely enjoyed it. It's an easy watch, I would say. It went down smooth. And I really appreciated some of the presentation. You spend the vast majority of the time living in the footage from the event and getting to see musical performances from acts that you've probably heard of, and also acts that you've never heard of. Acts that kind of had some level of buzz at the time, but didn't necessarily stand the test of time big enough to have seeped into my world, right? And I'm definitely not somebody who listens to soul music from the late 60s, early 70s on a regular basis. Certainly some of that music has transcended my bubble for sure, my musical bubble. And so I had heard of acts like Stevie Wonder or Nina Simone or some of the other bigger names. What was the other one? The Everyday People guy. I'm drawing a blank on the name.
Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah, Sly and the Family Stone is certainly a name I've heard. I've heard Everyday People. I enjoy that song. It's not a song or music or even time period where I would just put music on from that time period. So some of it I've absorbed just over time because it has continued to be popular, but not necessarily my thing. That being said, after watching this documentary, I'm not saying it will become my exclusive thing, but I could see myself listening to more of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And actively tracking it down to hear what the good stuff from that time period in this scene was, because I just found it pleasurable to watch these people just absolutely kill it on stage. I mean, there's a sequence in here where these two women are singing a gospel song and they're just doing these vocal trills that were like absolutely like jaw-dropping, amazing. And then at some point it felt like a little bit rehearsed in the beginning, and then at some point they start sharing the microphone, and at that point you can see that it's not rehearsed, that this is like people literally just like pouring their hearts out on stage through like vocal improv. And it was just, it's one of those things that I'm glad that this type of performance was unearthed, because I think it's something that reminds you that people are people, and they're doesn't matter what they look like if they have it musically. Like it's absolutely, when you see somebody that you've never seen before, right? They haven't been marketed to you. You haven't been told that they're great at what they do. They literally are just in front of you through happenstance. In this case, you said, let's watch this documentary. I had no reference for the documentary other than like, I knew that Questlove had made a documentary because I think he mentioned it on the Oscars, right? Didn't he mention this on the Oscars?
He might have given a promo. Yeah, that's right, because he DJ'd the Oscars. Yeah, I think so.
So I vaguely remember him mentioning it there, but that's pretty much the only context I had for this. And then to see these artists, specifically those two women, I'm seeing them for the first time, and like immediately when they're done, I'm just like, I have to see more of this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it was at that moment where I was kind of like, I wish they would just take this entire performance, and not just them. Like, I mean, just take the entire day, put it on a timeline in Premiere exactly as it happened, and throw that on YouTube. I would just put it on in the background and watch it.
Well, and I don't think this was a day. I think this was weekends. Like, they showed the schedule, and I think there was like, it was a concert series. So I think this went on for 5 or 6 weekends in a row.
Really? I missed that, because from shot to shot, it kind of looked like the same day.
I mean, they did have very consistent weather.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it was 5 weekends, then there's way more footage than they had.
Oh, I am sure. Yeah, but I agree. Like, I could watch a stream of just this whole thing.
Yeah. It was pretty great. And I will admit that I got a little emotional when people who were recounting, you know, the experiences they had and how much it meant to them. I couldn't help but be touched by some of the stories. And it's not even necessarily the stories. It's just, they got in when they did cut away from the footage and they cut to like interview footage, they typically got in real close on people's faces as they watched the performances back. And so I like the style of, it generally wasn't just somebody staring directly into the camera saying, you know, kind of giving you context. It was more them re-experiencing the footage along with your first time of experiencing it. And to be able to sit down with somebody who's intimately attached to the subject matter, but who hasn't seen it for decades, and have their experience reaffirmed through the footage. It's just a unique presentation. I enjoyed it quite a bit. What did you think of it?
I mean, I agree with all the points you made so far. I think you and I have very similar experience. This style of music is a style of music that I definitely listen to, especially Motown. I really enjoy Motown, that sound. You know, some of the soul gospel I'm aware of. I don't listen to as much, but after watching this, I'm ready to jump into more of like the Staple Sisters and Mahalia Jackson, and just right, because like you said, there's so much emotion in these performances and on screen. And something that you didn't mention is the whole time, sort of the Black civil rights, you know, political, cultural movement is happening, you know, and is sort of being reflected through this festival. And you're seeing Black America change through this festival. I mean, this thing takes place maybe about a year and a couple months after Martin Luther King was assassinated. So the community is still processing that. That performance you talked about was, what was her name? Mahalia Jackson and then Mavis Staples were singing Martin Luther King's favorite song, right? And it was like this huge cathartic moment for them, for the community to like, you know, deal with the fact that this leader in their community has been killed, and all the struggles they're having, and to like to see people express themselves on screen like that was right, emotional and incredible to see that. And then, yeah, like you said, watching these performers, obviously they were there 50 years ago, but because this was a forgotten thing, I doubt they've really talked about this Harlem Cultural Festival in the last 5 decades. So to have the performers who were there to watch the footage and to be asked about something that obviously they knew they were there, but something they probably haven't talked about in public in 50 years was great to see them kind of living it back and to have them experience like those days and how much fun they had and how important it was for them to be there. I thought that was a really clever thing of Questlove to do, just like to show the reactions of people watching this footage. At one point, they're talking at the very end. They're talking to a guy who was like a kid when he went to this, and he said at the end, like, "I'm glad I'm not crazy." And I'm glad this actually happened, right? Because I'm like, we all have memories from being 5, 6 years old where we're like, I think when I was 5, I did this, but you're not quite sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure for this man and for a lot of people who were kids there, they were like, yeah, I remember like being in a park and seeing Stevie Wonder. Did that really happen? Mm-hmm. And then to finally be like, yes, that did happen. You did go to a park. You did see Stevie Wonder perform. Sure. You're not crazy. You did not make up some memory. So that was really neat. But yeah, like just to see the performances were great, but then to kind of get this story about how Black America was changing and how this festival, at least to like this neighborhood, was sort of a part of that change. And even like the shift in music, they talk about, you know, half the people there, not half the people, but like some of the people there were big fans of Temptations and Glass Night and the Pips and more of like the suit and tie style. And then you also have people like Sly and the Family Stone who's showing up and doing more of like the soul, you know, psychedelic stuff and kind of that shift in the music within the community itself. So yeah, I mean, this was, I could watch hours of this. I could watch Stevie Wonder perform for days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like
I could watch Nina Simone perform.
Yeah,
for
she
days.
was
like,
great.
She was. That's a name that I've heard.
Okay,
and I'm sure I've seen clips of here and there, but definitely have not dove into. Mm-hmm. And I mean, she's she only does like 2 songs in the movie, but I was absolutely captivated by her. She's I would not want to be on her bad side.
no, her stage presence is something else.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. I mean, she could, I believe she could command any army and they would follow her because I believed every word that came out of her mouth, that she meant every single word. Yeah, it was kind of awesome.
Didn't one of the concert goers describe her as she looked like an African princess?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she was really good. The Sly and the Family Stone too was fun to watch, just because they're borderline the Muppet Band, I would say.
Just in their crazy outfits.
Their crazy outfits and the antics and just kind of the good vibes that they're throwing out. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was interesting just to see the wide range of music that was played over the course of that festival.
So I never realized that Fifth Dimension, who sing Age of Aquarius, was a predominantly, or it was an African American group. Mm-hmm. And like they even addressed that, how the members of Fifth Dimension were like, oh yeah, everyone thought we were a white group just because like because of how we sing and the style of music we play, and like how important it was for them to be in Harlem performing for the Black community, and how that made them feel more welcome in that community. You know, even though they're Black themselves, like just because of they weren't playing traditionally, quote unquote, you know, Black style music in that time, what people expect from a group like that. So I thought that was really cool, just to like how important that was for them to be there.
Yeah, I also find it interesting that they don't go into this too much in the documentary. They do dip into it occasionally, but where this event took place in the time period and the location, you know, in a major U.S. city in the late 60s, I feel like when I grew up, in most of the media that I consumed or the things that I was taught throughout school, the representation of Black struggle or civil rights struggle at the time, is just constantly filled with images of Black people fighting with the police or like rioting or getting attacked by dogs or hosed or, you know what I mean? Images of people holding up the Black Power symbol, acting violent, things like that, violent rhetoric. While those things certainly happened and are a part of the story, the more and more of this type of the story that I get, the more I realize like it's just left out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like this totally peaceful event that had a range of voices speaking from a stage, right? Some who were absolutely 100% peace no matter what, and others who were calling for revolution. And then you've just got just straight pastors who are singing hymns from the stage to a crowd who's loving it. Loving every minute of it. I mean, yeah, it's kind of mind boggling to realize just how much of the bigger picture just was never presented in the history of this time period. And so I hope we get more of it. I hope we get the opportunity to see, not necessarily more of this event, although I do want more of that, just more of other things that happened in this time period and like giving a better perspective on the things that we already know. So I don't know.
Right. Because when you talk about, or when people talk about the Cultural Revolution of the 60s, they're talking about like San Francisco and hippies and flower power and stuff like that, or then kind of how that morphs into the 70s. And obviously there were all parts of the country who were going through Cultural Revolution in the 60s, not just, white people out in San Francisco. Right. So to see how also like the Harlem community was also going through their own cultural revolution at the exact same time as the rest of the country was, because they're dealing they're dealing with Vietnam, with civil rights, like all the same issues that the whole country was dealing with. These communities are dealing with too, and it's just great to see that represented on screen and to say like there's more to history than just like this very black and white approach to it.
Yeah, or like the sensationalized version of this point in history.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's what I'm realizing I've gotten through most of my life is that most sensational moments that you can find, those are the ones that have been focused on. When there's there's a lot more to it than just those moments for sure. So I appreciated the opportunity to get a little more of that. I kind of feel like Jesus and the Black Messiah, maybe Black Klansman a little bit, gives us a little more of like, oh, there's a different perspective on some of these things. This it definitely is not a similar thing. It's just gives me the same vibe of like, oh, I enjoy seeing things from a different perspective than maybe I was taught. It's not necessarily that I believe what I was taught was wrong. It's just there's so many details that were left out. They feel conveniently left out.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to say like these people did this and these people did that, and that's history. Like, no, it's a little more complicated than that.
So like in this time period, what I was taught are like hippies, they're burnouts, but they're generally harmless.
Yeah.
Right? They're like the fun, peace-loving flower power people. And the Black Panthers are violent for no reason. Like that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. They're militant, they're scary. And they just hate, they hate what American society was at the time. And on both sides, it's far more complicated than that. But that's the simplistic picture that was fed to me.
Yep.
So, I think it's worth a watch if you like music, even if you don't think you'll enjoy this music. If you enjoy music, I guarantee you'll enjoy what this has to offer. If you like good documentaries, I think it's also going to be right up your alley for sure.
Yeah, like the talent on stage and the energy is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, we've waxed this car enough, I think.
It is super shiny at this point.
I'm not sure it's a movie that will go like in my top 10 documentaries as a whole, but if we were to make a top 10 music documentary list, I think this would make the list.
This would make the list, yeah.
Yeah. All right, what are you going to give Summer of Soul, Kyle?
I am between a 4 and a 4.5.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go 4. Only if I had a criticism, it was the back half had less music than the front half. The back half got a little bit more into like the political, cultural thing, and that front half was just like music.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I didn't. Obviously, I enjoyed the political, cultural aspect of it, but I really was just enjoying. Like the high of this movie is that Mahalia Jackson Mavis Staples duet. Right,
Mm-hmm.
That is the best performance in the movie.
Yeah, and it
comes right at the middle.
Right. Yep. I will give it a 4.5, and it's not because I don't think this movie is perfect. I think it's kind of perfect on many levels. It's more that I want more. I mean, why is there a 224-minute version of Woodstock available, and we don't get a 3 to 4 hour version of this? You know what I mean? Or like, that's what I want.
This could have been a TV series, like a limited series.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think you probably would have gotten less people to press play on it. Yeah. But the ones that did, it would pay off for in spades.
All right. I'm going to bump up to 4.5. I'm going to meet you on this one.
All right. We tied on both movies then.
Wow. We're in sync this week.
We're completely in sync. We're like, what'd you say? Mavis?
Mavis Staples and Mahalia Jackson.
Yep. We're the Mahalia Jackson and Mavis Staples of movie podcasting right now.
If this is the one and only time we'll ever be compared to that.
For sure. Great. Well, thank you for listening to this episode 488 of the Cinereelists podcast. Just 12 episodes till we hit that magic number 500. Looking forward to that. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, video version of the podcast on YouTube. Follow us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast. Extra after show audio. Leave us an Apple Podcast reviews. And send us an email. heyguys@cinereelists.com. We'll discuss it on the podcast. Next week, I think, did we decide next week? No, it's still kind of up in the air. It might be a Quiet Place 2. Might be a Quiet Place 2, or it might be Old. So if you haven't seen either of those, or you've seen one or the other, and you want to, pre-watch something, it's going to be one or the other of those, most likely. The week after that, we're loosely planning The Green Knight. So if you get a chance to see that, I would say do it. And this was fun, Kyle. Thanks.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome. You can also follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @Cinereelists, or you can follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account @YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd @PeterSKB.
We'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.